Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Melissa Recovers. This morning we're going to make some banana chocolate chip muffins that end up being 3 smart points each without sacrificing any flavor. I could do egg beaters and a few other things to bring the points down, but we have chicken, so I have eggs, so I try to use the stuff that I have and just be economical. We're going to start with, I'm doing a double batch. This will make 24 muffins. This is 4 cups of this Power Cakes mix. You can pick it up at Costco. And it's a big time saver. I could grind my own wheat and figure out the different ingredients to make a nice basic thing, but this is just a time saver for me. So I kind of whisk this together. To that I'm going to add a teaspoon of baking powder just to give it a little bit more lift, and a half a teaspoon of baking soda. And I use a whisk so I don't have to sift the ingredients together, the dry ingredients. And now I'm going to work on the wet ingredients. I'll set this aside. So I like using my blender for this. I'm going to dump in 6 eggs. Got these from the chickens last night, so they're super fresh. And then I'm going to add 6 bananas. Now that seems like a lot, but when you think about it, there's no other real sugar in this recipe except for the chocolate chips. So when you are, thinking about the points of this, just realize that we're using the bananas as partially our sweetener, partially our binder, and they're just a great addition. So I'm just going to throw them in here in the blender. And I like to use my blender because it incorporates the eggs all with the bananas. So it basically mixes the bananas and the eggs together. And 2 more bananas. And you might ask, how in the world did she come up with 6 bananas for this recipe? Well, there's 6 people in my family, and when I develop a recipe, I start by looking at what ingredients I would put for the amount of people in my family. And then I add based on other recipes that aren't necessarily Weight Watchers friendly, but the amount of dry ingredients with the amount of wet ingredients, and then I come up with my creation. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop for just a second, and I'm gonna go blend these bananas and eggs up, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. 10 seconds in the blender, and I've got this awesome egg banana mixture that's ready to roll. I'm just gonna incorporate this into the dry mix that we made. Try to do my best to get all that yummy protein and healthy fats and bananas out of the blender. And then I'm just going to fold the dry ingredients in. One important thing about muffins is that you don't want to over mix them. You want to just stir them until just moisten, just until the dry mix is incorporated, because muffins are quick bread, and unlike yeasty breads like, sourdough or whole wheat or rye, one of those kind, you do not want strands of gluten in your muffin, because gluten is like the muscle structure of a piece of bread or bread-like product. And gluten is developed the more that you mix it. So I'm just going to do one last little go through, make sure I get all the dry off of the bottom, because you don't want any muffins that have dry pockets. But I would highly recommend hand mixing this and not using an electric hand mixer. I've got this awesome, I think it's like a stir and scrape from Pampered Chef that I've had for 19 years. I got it at a wedding shower when I got married. So, and it's been great. It's held up all these years. The last ingredient that we're going to add to our muffins is 8 tablespoons or 1/2 cup of mini morsels. Now you can shop around and see if you can find sugar-free or something else, but again, I have a family of 6 and I'm cheap. So I'm going to use what I have. And I'm just going to add these in. And we will fold them in. And you can see it's a generous amount of chocolate chips. You're not going to feel cheated at all with this. So the last step that we're going to do before we throw these in the oven is scoop these out. Now, usually with my muffins, I go around and I do kind of a leveled off scoop, and I do 2 per regular size muffin pan. Now if you wanted to make these into mini muffins, you could probably get the muffins themselves down to 1 point a piece, depending upon where you're at points wise. But that's just more pans to clean. And I'm lazy, so I just go ahead and scoop these. Now, in the end, depending upon the size of your muffins, and the size of your bananas, and the size of your eggs, and all that kind of good stuff, sometimes you end up with just a little bit more than 24, and that's okay. You can just enter the ingredients into your recipe builder and tweak it. Like, for instance, I had a friend that made my banana nut crunch muffins, and she got 16 out of a half batch instead of 12. And it looks like we're probably going to get more than 24 as well. So if that's the case, I'll just go back to my computer and I'll punch in that I got 32 or whatever I end up getting. And sometimes you get them for less points. It's kind of awesome. And that's one of the beauties of the Weight Watchers tools online. I'm a big, big fan. Because whenever I make something, I just punch it in. Then there's no guesswork. Now, some of you may be wondering about the whole bananas blended controversy. If you look at the recipe builder, there's a box to mark that says, is this going to be a drink? And because this is not a drink, I'm not stressing about blending the bananas. To me, it's a lot like the difference between eating a whole apple and eating a cup of unsweetened applesauce. Yes, it takes more calories to burn up, to chew up an apple, but that's not necessarily the case with bananas, and I'm just gonna let it be. We can get really worked up about things like bananas and applesauce and all of those things, but in the reality, we didn't end up being overweight from bananas and applesauce. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw these in the oven, and when they're done, I'll pop them out and you can see what they look like. Okay, the muffins are out of the oven, and you can see they puffed up great. You can see these awesome little chocolate chips throughout the whole batch. They're evenly distributed, and we're gonna let them cool. I cooked them at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and you need to cook them for 15 to 20 minutes, and that's a wide range. And again, a lot of that has to do with the liquid from bananas and the size of your eggs. So I'm going to go ahead and dump these out and plate them up, and we're going to have a great breakfast. And I did actually end up getting more than the 24 muffins. I got one of these too. Can you see this? There, a mini muffin pan. And this took 6 scoops of muffin mix. So there's 2 scoops in each of these. I'm going to count this as 3 muffins. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to plug it into the recipe builder And we should get 27 servings from this recipe today. And then we will know exactly how many points there are. They're probably still going to be around 3 because the chocolate chips really make them awesome, but they also make them a little bit more in points. And that's okay, because this is about living and enjoying our food, not just eating, you know, horse food. So, I will go ahead and insert the recipe and let you know what my family thinks about them. Have a great day. I was going to give you one more tip. I have done these muffins in the paper liners, and that's great because it saves cleanup on the pans. But a fourth of your muffin ends up sticking to the paper liner. And yeah, you can spray the paper liners and all that kind of good stuff, but I found with these lower fat muffins that don't have the extra added oils into them, they end up sticking to papers. So I just skip the papers with this particular recipe and just use the non-stick cooking spray, and they turn out great. I will even just break one of these open for you guys so you can see what the texture on the inside looks like. So this is a muffin. Look at that. Ooh, chocolate. It's going to be a great fix for your chocolate fix. And